Hello everyone, welcome back to my video. Today I will deliver you with another lecture for the CFT 1063 Basic Multimedia and Web Technology courses for the week 6 lecture, which is elements of multimedia audio. Alright, so without further ado, let's get to it. Alright. So let's see. So for the learning outcomes for this lecture, at the end of the lecture, you should be able to give the definitions and example of audio, and then also able to simplify the characteristics of audio. So before that, let's go through the lecture and see whether you can achieve the learning outcomes given. Here is some quotes by Richard Bowden about audio, which says sounds are more emotional than pictures. Think of a car door slamming in the movies. It's the great audio system that makes the door slamming sound real, not so much the pictures. So from these quotes, we can simplify that it means that the audio give better impact than the pictures, according to Richard Bowden. Okay, so let's see. What is audio? So what is audio? Audio has characteristic, classes, and types. Audio is something related to something that hearing can capture. So technically, whatever that can be detected by your hearing sense can be considered something to do with audio. Sound, which can be recorded, transmitted, and reproduced. Alright, so technically it's a sound, and a scientific explanation might explain that vibration transmit through a solid, liquid, or gas composed of frequency within the range of hearing and of level, meaning that it also can come up from the vibration of that can be transmit to your hearing senses, that can be captured through your hearing sense, then that can be considered audio. Alright, so there are three main classes of audio that you should know in this class. The first one is sound effects, okay, and the second one is the voices, and the third one is music. Okay, let's see. Here are some example of audio in multimedia usage. You can use it as a noise, voice, and narration for your multimedia purposes, radio wave, song and instrumental playback, and sounds of nature. Okay, there are two types of audio which come up from the result of two different recording methods. Okay, the first one is analog. Analog is considered a traditional form of audio, and the second one is digital. So let's go through what is can be considered as analog video. So analog video is a direct recording from earlier technologies such as microphone, and stored. The recording is stored in form of electrical analog signal, meaning that the way that the audio will be recorded and stored will determine the type of audio, whether it's analog or digital. So it's normally imprinted to analog tape, which is you rarely seen nowadays, cassettes, or even record, or in Malay we call it piring hitam, and other old devices. Alright, so most of the analog audio that you can find out is very rare to see nowadays. But back in the old days, we used to listen to this type of audio. So the downside of this type of analog audio is it in times an analog audio will degrade in quality when play or copy repeatedly. For example, back in the days we have a cassette. I'm not sure you have encountered these things or not in your life. We have a cassette that used to can be played in a radio, cassette radio player. Um, so we used to listen to the audio from this cassette, but the problem is that the more frequent that we play the audio, the cassette, then the quality of the audio in the cassette will decrease due to the process of it playing back. Because when it play, it will has to the cassette will have to go through a film, and the decoder or the player will like do something, have like a system that will detect the audio from the film, and along the process of decoding the audio into the radio, it will somehow affect the cassette itself, the film in the cassette itself, and along the time it will decrease or degrade the quality of the audio contained in that cassette. Okay, right. So let's see what about digital audio. So it pretty much use the same method in analog audio in recording, but the sound, contrary to the analog audio, for the digital audio, the sound is converted to series of number data or digital format. Technically speaking, during the recording process for a digital audio, the end output for the recording will be stored in the form of digital format. Alright, so digital software and hardware can read and reproduce it, meaning that it also requires some certain software and hardware to record the audio, to capture the audio and store it in a digital form. Alright, back in the days, this audio is also it's also happened to be in nowadays. This audio is stored in more modern device such as CD. I'm not sure. Hold on. Alright, so I'm sorry about that. There's a call that I have to answer. But let's continue. So this audio is stored in a more modern device such as CD, thumb drive, or also known as USB stick or USB drive, MP3 player. Also, it's a rare case situation nowadays. PC, of course, and iPods. I think there are no longer iPods since yeah, but we have iPod back in the days. Alright, so let's get to it. And digital audio will never degrade in quality when copied unless if manipulated in software. So the main difference between the digital audio and the analog audio is that it will not degrade in quality if no matter how frequent we gonna play it or listen to it compared to the analog audio, because the digital audio will be played using a computer algorithm software, using a certain software or player, and it will not affect the quality of the file unless it can be degraded unless you purposely want to degrade the quality using certain software. Alright, so let's see. Both analog and digital audio can reproduce. Right, so both of it can be reproduced. So below that, you can see on your screen there are a couple of item or device that used to play an audio. So can you differentiate the types of audio formats stored or played in these devices? Okay, the first one we have iPod. So you may look it like an iPhone, like an old iPhone, but back in the days we have iPod. So it pretty much resemble an iPhone. So the difference is it main focus or it purpose just to, it has the same interface as iPhone, but it just cannot make a call, or it can so it doesn't have a SIM card slot, so it cannot get data, but you still can connect to the internet using Wi-Fi, and also it also has a you can also install certain apps that also can be installed in iPhone. So it's called iPod. All right. So what type of audio is stored in this device that you think? So definitely it's a digital audio. And the second one is a record. It's a vinyl record. This one needs a dedicated player to encode the record, so it can play music or audio. Also, the music fan have a different opinion about it, that it has certain quality of audio if you listen to the record compared to when you play it digitally. Okay, so but it can store analog audio. And the third one is the cassette. Cassette is a device that also store audio. Back in the days, we used to listen to the song using this. Okay, so it also stored analog audio. And Walkman is a player. It cannot store audio. The function of the Walkman is to able to encode the cassette to transmit audio, meaning that you need to put the cassette into the Walkman, and then only you can listen to the song that or audio that is stored in the cassette. So that is Walkman. So technically it's analog lah. And the last one is laptop. So this one I'm sure pretty much sure all of you know what type of audio stored in this device. It is a digital audio. Alright, so let's see the characteristics of audio. We have the first one is amplitude, the second one is frequency, and the third one is wavelength. Amplitude refer to the power of intensity of the sound, meaning the louder the sound, the larger the amplitude. As for the frequency, is the rate of which sound is recorded, measured in cycles per second or hertz. So normally for the audio we have 4.1 hertz audio. Alright, so the third one is wavelength. In a wave, the distance between any given point and the same point in the next wave cycle. So to understand the wavelength, you have to understand the audio type of the data type for the audio. Alright, so let's see. So when you recording an audio, if you encounter any audio software later on, you can see there is a wave created from the audio. So normally it will show you in a form of wave. Okay, the form of wave. So this it has what you call it in the middle here, and then the distance between the middle line to the end of the wave or the peak of the wave is called amplitude. Okay, amplitude. So for the wavelength, we will measure between one cycle, meaning the start of the wave, peak and end is a one cycle. So this is a wavelength. Okay, wavelength. So normally when we see an audio data that have a short wavelength, normally it's a high frequency audio. But it have a long wavelength, meaning that it is a low frequency audio. Okay, so let's have a look on basic of digital audio. Basically nowadays almost all sound you heard from a device is digital, except what you heard from previous generation device like cassette and record player. So I'm not sure if you have used the previous generation device. I'm not sure if we are in the same generation, but if you have the old generation like me, we're gonna use the previous generation device like cassette and record player to listen to the audio compared to nowadays that you just have to pay it as simple as using your phone. Okay, so what is your favorite music streaming service? Almost all music you heard from modern device is digital. Some device support stereo sound. What is stereo? So you might heard there is a mono, stereo and all. So what is stereo? So let's have a look. Mono versus stereo versus surround sound. So mono, meaning that it's a mono, direct translation for the mono is a one mono. One mono sound is similar sound in both right and left output, meaning that normally mono is when you listen to something to your audio, let's say if you have a speaker, they have a right and left speaker. The same thing if you have a headphone or earpod or earphone, it has right and left, meaning that if you're listening to the mono audio, the both output for your right and left output is the same data, right? But or maybe you can only listen to if you try to listen to the audio, you might listen it to only one channel of your audio output device. Maybe you only listen it through your right output or left output. That can also be considered as mono. Alright, so the stereo has two different audio channel in right and left output, meaning that when you listen to a music or to a certain audio file, you might sound it's something identical or something similar between your right and left output. But if you listen properly, there are difference between your right and left output. Okay, so it doesn't have this exactly same data. It might have some depth to the audio data. For example, you might able to hear something like when the audio can pan between your right and left ears. So there is definitely a stereo. As for surround audio use more than two audio channel. So meaning that it has more channel to the audio, and it contain depth to the audio. You can feel the audio like moving throughout your surrounding. Okay. So this is the mono, and we have a stereo audio. It also only focus on the frontal of your surrounding, and we have surround audio which cover your 360 of your surrounding. Okay, so a home theater surround system is a surround audio system, may have 5.1 or 7.1 set up. So the what is the 5.1 or 7.1? Is it some kind of version or what? So it represent the numbers of speakers that the system contain, and the 0.1 is referring to the subwoofer. Subwoofer is the box here that you normally put on the floor to create like a, what you call it, to increase the bass audio system. Alright, so for Dolby Atmos that you will normally listen in the cinema, theater cinema may have up to 64 speakers. It can be different in numbers depending on the setup and the system, but it may have up to 64 speakers. Alright, so while producing or recording digital audio, you need to consider the amplitude. The amplitude is the most important thing, because once it's reached the maximum amplitude, it will I mean, the quality of the audio will hurt. Okay, and also the sound quality and hurt the hearing. Okay, so let's say for example you want to record something, you might want to watch or monitor the wave of the audio, so it doesn't hit the maximum amplitude. Right, so the frequency of multimedia standard are normally stored around 4.1 kilohertz, and normally for the channel you can use either mono, stereo or surround. But if you want to use mono, just fill in both channel using the same audio. If you left only put one channel, although both channel will have the same audio type, but you have to fill in both, or else when people listen to your audio, it will only cover one side of the output, or either right or left. Okay, so next we have equalizer. Equalizer is software or hardware filter that adjusts the loudness of specific frequency. Normally we use the equalizer to like trim the audio in accordance to our preferences of hearing, our hearing preferences. Okay, so normally they already certain music player already provide certain template or filter to adjust the equalizer accordingly, so it limited the music, like the example shown on your screen for rock, jazz, bass, rock, vocal. Right. Alright, so next one we have MIDI. MIDI is a musical instrument digital interface. Okay. So MIDI stand for musical instrument digital interface. So it's technically is an device. So it's a technical standard for audio production. It's a device or gadget, normally in the form of a piano or touchpad or whatever, that can digitize. So any sample or any digital audio sample can be digitized and can be sampled into a certain set, and whereas MIDI will be able to play it once you touch any button or pad in the MIDI, and it will transcode the audio. Okay, MIDI system can also play various human sound to be recorded and digitalized. Okay, and the diagram shows one of the typical MIDI system. So it's a MIDI keyboard controller, normally in the form of keyboard controller or touchpad, or nowadays even you can use your own iPad or tablet to, you have to install certain apps to turn it into a MIDI device. Okay, so so you can see from diagram, we have a MIDI keyboard controller, and it will link to the MIDI control multi effects to create certain effects, and also, and the output will have to go to MIDI tabletop synthesizer, also to distort or to edit the audio to the according to the preferences of the musician, and the MIDI will go out and goes into MIDI lighting fog machine controller. This is to, like, maybe during the performance you might want to the lighting and the fog system to react or integrate with the audio, and then in the same time the MIDI will connect directly through the computer. Normally for the audio production we use Mac, because Mac has a better sound. It handles sound better compared to Windows, because it has a hardware, and the OS also friendly to the audio. Okay, contrary to the Windows where you have to install certain codec, has some certain device, additional device to help in processing the audio. Right, so let's see the popular audio formats. We have MP3. This is the most popular one. I will not explain every detail of every format. You can read it later on, but I just go through the most prominent or the most common one that you normally use. For this first one is MP3. This is common one. Normally it's referring to the song that you download from the internet or download from the Apple Music or Spotify or whatever, in a form of MP3. So it basically it's a low file size, but it offer great quality, but not really high quality, but adequate to your ears or to your listening. And then we have a wave. Wave is the standard in audio, on CD audio. It offer you better quality of audio compared to the MP3, but it also will give you it will produce a bigger file size, right? And cannot support metadata, so that's why MP3 is better, because it can contain of metadata, so you can know certain information about the audio. And then we have AAC. It's an alternative for MP3. And then the rest you can just go through. Basically it's also an audio format, but the one that I mentioned is the most common one, and normally can be open and can be played in the most device and laptop. Okay, so next we're gonna have a look on codec. What is codec? This is basically the same thing as the video last time. We also have encountered the topic for the codec. So the codec for the audio and video basically work the same thing. It just the codec system might be different. Okay, so to this one you can read on your own, but to understand better about the codec, it's better for me to explain it using this diagram. Okay, So technically, codec, this is the video file or audio file. In this case, the audio file. Okay. When you have audio file, this on your left hand side of your screen is the process where before it became a video file. Okay, and on your right hand screen is process where it from its original form, which is a file, it can contribute and become to the playback. Okay, playback is when you want to watch it, when you want to watch it or listen to the audio, watch for the video or listen to the audio. So it's a playback. Okay, so let's go before it happened to the video file, before it become a video file. So normally an audio, the raw file size of the audio from the recording, or for example from the software, audio software, it will be bigger file size. Okay, and also it's contain many data on the file. So if you want to store 1 minute kind of audio, it will cost you like even 1 gig to 2 gig size of data. So that's where is audio codec come in. It will do the job to compress the file, compress the data, or in the other hand is codec, is encode it into a video file. So the video file that you see is basically a compressed version of audio. Okay, when you double click on the video file, it will decompress. Double click means you want to play the audio, for example. You want to listen to the audio. It will decompress or decoding. Okay, you are decoding the file throughout using the codec system. According to the codec system, codec is basically an algorithm that it will have to go through whenever it will from the compressing and decompressing process and turn into a playback audio, which is the song, MP3 song that you want to listen. Okay, then once you turn it off, it will go through this process again, audio codec, and it will be compressed into a video file, into the audio file. Okay, so it's the same thing with the concept of codec is the same between video and audio. Okay, all right, so we have audio player and audio editing programs. So this is audio player. The difference is playback features. You can edit. The only thing that you can edit is throughout the equalizer. Some player needs internet connection, such as Spotify, for example. Samsung Music, iTunes, and so on. Alright, so the audio editor on the other hand is a software that allows you to edit the audio, to tweak the wavelength of the audio, to put some effect to the audio, and convert it or store it into different kind of data. So it's for example, it's using Adobe Audition. Adobe Audition is the most common, and then is what we have another is Soundforce, Fruity Loop, and so on. Okay, so that's it for audio, and I hope you understand my lecture. And if you have any questions or any problem regarding the lecture, you can leave some comment or questions in the comment section below. Also, you can contact me directly using any channel such as WhatsApp or Telegram. And that's it for now. See you on the next video, and thank you for watching. Alright, ciao.